The scene opens with Dan, a master car salesman who understands customer motivations like few others, earning him the title of Salesman of the Month once again. Meanwhile, his colleague Hal makes a flashy entrance at the dealership, driving as if he believes cars, and by extension, women prefer speed. However, the rest of the team finds him a bit odd. Dan leaves work early, eager to celebrate his wedding anniversary, showing his appreciation for family life in his quiet suburban neighborhood. They have 3 children, Na, Kyle, and Max. Na plans to follow her boyfriend to Iowa and change colleges, abandoning her journalistic aspirations, much to her parents' disapproval. Kyle, struggling to communicate with his father, decides to visit his friend Samir after Dan discourages him from playing video games. Na and Kyle argue about who will take care of Max during their parents' anniversary, and Dan intervenes, assigning Na the task and suggesting Kyle spend some time outside the house. However, Kyle goes to Samir's house and pays $200 to use the gaming setup in the garage. Secretly, Kyle is a popular streamer known as Killboy, famous for his skills in shooting games. Dan and Jessica celebrate their anniversary by visiting an amusement park. During a confrontation with a young man who takes a photo without permission, Dan tries to stay calm but feels frustrated by the lack of action. At home, he reflects on the incident while caring for his son, and Jessica tries to comfort him. The next day, Jessica vents during a kickboxing class and befriends Gwen, a travel agent who makes her rethink her life. Meanwhile, Dan discovers a secret compartment with weapons, passports, and money, realizing his old life as an assassin is about to resurface. He contacts Augie to arrange new identities for his family, fearing his former boss, McCaffrey, is after him. Dan decides to take his family to Las Vegas under the pretense of a spontaneous trip. He convinces Jessica, and together with the kids, they embark on a journey full of twists and turns, while Dan tries to keep everyone unaware of the impending danger. On the way, Dan swaps the tracker on his car with Hal's, fooling the pursuers. With only 33 hours until they reach Las Vegas, Dan collects the family's phones, claiming it to be a technology-free trip, which irritates the kids. Without phones, they use old-fashioned maps and genuinely bond, singing on the road and creating a memorable moment. Meanwhile, McCaffrey discovers Kyle's identity as Killboy and orders his men to find him. Dan now has to protect his family, evade the mercenaries, and deal with the challenges of his double life. If I were in Dan's shoes, I would never have kept so many secrets from my family, as honesty can be crucial in crisis situations. On the other hand, Dan is right to remain calm and act quickly to protect his family, showing that despite his questionable methods, he truly cares about their well-being. The most interesting part is seeing how Dan, an apparently ordinary car salesman, reveals unexpected skills and a dangerous past, proving that no one is exactly who they seem to be. In the next scene, Dan rehearses his confession to Jessica about his past life as an assassin. Unsure how to break the news, he decides to pay for the rooms. On the way, he sees Kyle talking to a girl who is impressed with him and takes a selfie, calling him Killboy. Dan discovers his son is a famous gamer and that the girl is going to post the photos online. He makes up a story that all the rooms are booked and they need to keep traveling. McCaffrey recruits a gang of bikers to track Dan. As 3 bikers approach, Dan, with his family asleep to calming music, prepares his silenced gun. One of them is taken down, and Max, the only one awake, helps his dad by handing him a milk bottle as an improvised weapon. "What was that?" asks Max. "Just a pothole, son." Near the college Na wants to visit, she insists on stopping, despite Jessica's reluctance. "We're not seeing Trevor, are we?" asks Jessica. "Actually, I want to see the campus," Na replies. On campus, Jessica reminisces about her athletic days and impresses Na with a keg stand. Dan notices a suspicious German man, starts a conversation in German, and realizes he made a mistake when attacked by another agent. Dan fends off the attacker and returns to his family, but Na finds Trevor, who is cheating on her. She comes back in tears, and Dan teaches her a 13th century martial arts technique to inflict pain without permanent damage. "How do you know this, Dad?" "Maybe I'm older and wiser than you think," Na uses the technique on Trevor and returns to the car, appreciating her father more. The next morning, Dan calls Augie, who is on his way with new identities. He hasn't told the family about the new names and the move to another country. Kyle talks about being a professional streamer, and the two bet on a laser tag match. Dan wins, but the competition brings father and son closer. In Las Vegas, Dan receives the new identities and plans to tell the truth to Jessica during a romantic dinner. However, McCaffrey's men locate them. Kyle suggests visiting the gaming arena, where he meets another famous gamer. Meanwhile, Dan tries to confess the truth to Jessica in French, but is constantly interrupted. He decides to postpone the confession and checks on the kids, finding ominous silhouettes in the room. With gunfire and action in the style of the whole 9 yards, Dan neutralizes the attackers, but Jessica discovers the truth upon hearing Dan being called Sean, the former assassin. She vomits but quickly realizes she must save the children. At the abandoned hotel where McCaffrey has set up a meeting, Dan discovers the villain is his British father. McCaffrey wants Dan back in the business, but the family refuses to abandon him. Jessica teams up with Gwen but is overpowered. Dan removes the bullets from McCaffrey's gun, and the family works together to defeat the thugs. Na uses an emotional approach to distract McCaffrey, allowing Dan to act. The police arrive, and 6 months later, Na becomes a famous journalist, Dan starts a security company, and Kyle continues his videos. The family prepares for a big trip, taking Na to Stanford. Tell me in the comments what you thought of the video and what you would do if you were in Dan's situation. See you next time.
And I gotta tell you, it was perfect. Perfect.